My next story goes to actually a couple stories having to do with former New York Mayor Bloomberg. And one of the perennial complaints of the left is that the rich have too much power and influence. And just, as one of a trillion examples, when it was revealed that the billionaire investor Peter Thiel had funded Hulk Hogan's lawsuit against Gawker a few years ago, there was this huge outcry. It was like, how can we let one person control the machinery of government and justice just because they have money? But when it comes to climate, they're actually cheering on something, this same phenomenon from Bloomberg. So in this case, Bloomberg just pledged $500 million to create a Beyond Carbon campaign to close every coal-fired power plant in the United States and halt the growth of natural gas. And the idea is that, well, we can't do very much to stop climate at a federal level. And so Bloomberg wants to focus on influencing state and local governments, which, by the way, I mean, having outsiders with a lot of money come in and try to influence local politics, that is exactly the sort of thing industry is criticized for doing when it spends money to defend its right to produce. But notice the context here. It's like, well, why do they need Bloomberg's money in order to fight these state and local battles? Like, why haven't the people just used their ability to vote to get these policies? And that's because they have voted on these policies. And even in places like Washington State, they've rejected restrictive climate policies. So this is a billionaire using $500 million to override and try to counter the choices of individuals, voting democratically. And now I actually have no objection to wealthy people using their wealth to promote their ideas. I mean, it's one of the reasons it's desirable to earn wealth, is that you can do a better job of promoting the ideas and causes that you care about. What I object to is using wealth to spread ideas that would make millions of other Americans poor. And I mean, I think it also exposes the fact that the green movement is fundamentally authoritarian. It is not, as they portray themselves, a democratic movement. That is just a convenient thing to wield whenever it is convenient, and a convenient thing to override whenever it's convenient. But there's another part of this story that I find even more troubling, or another example of Bloomberg's manipulating of the world to advance his agenda, which is he's basically paying the salaries and benefits for state attorneys general staff based on their support for, quote, advancing progressive clean energy, climate change, and environmental legal positions. And this is including things like these climate lawsuits going after companies like ExxonMobil. And basically the idea is that, like, the government is getting employees bought and paid for by a wealthy patron on the basis of his partisan policy preferences. I mean, it would be like if the Koch brothers said, all right, we're going to pay for EPA staff who agree with us that we need to roll back regulations. This is not exactly something that would be tolerated by anyone, let alone the people who are cheering on Bloomberg. And, unlike using your wealth to promote your ideas, I mean, this is in another category altogether. This is not like lobbying. I mean, this is closer to bribery. It is paying money to install people who have the ability to act in the name of the government, including by going after the energy companies who make our lives possible. Any thoughts, Steffen?
Yeah, I think just in the sort of Republican governance model, it's of course not a democracy. It's just that there are so many obstacles to making drastic changes, and I think one of the ways this is being done is the sort of incrementalism, where you just push back on the local level, the state level, the federal level. And if the legislation doesn't pass, you go to the courts and try your luck there. Maybe you get a good court district that's in your favor politically, something like that. And so the Republican system is quite robust in doing something against it. But if this onslaught is going on over and over again, and another lawsuit and a different angle of attack, then at some point something will break in and you will get more into the direction the Greens want you to go. And so what people like Bloomberg and others are doing, of course, is they are funding this machinery that creates one attack after the other, and they're not necessarily directly influencing that or make a decisive victory, but they are sort of increasing the chance of something happening in their favor. And of course, the fundamental thing is moral approach, like what would be the right thing to do. And I think it's public opinion is very relevant, and we need to do a lot on education and convincing the general public to prevent that from happening, because there's in all kinds of fields there's always this constant attack of people who are anti-human flourishing, even if they are not openly so, they are sort of working against that.